right, what a great intro. Welcome to the Two Joes podcast. We're coming at you again using Zoom. I'm joined with. Please help me welcome my co-host Mojo to the show.
Very nice to be here. Mojo, thank you again. This is kind of a tagline I'm using for every podcast we're doing now during this days of the coronavirus. Thank you again for getting me out of my house for an hour. It's when I sit there and I talk and we review things, and it's just I'm transported for an hour, and then when it's done, I'm back. I'll go fold some laundry or something. Keep myself busy. So thanks again.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for being on the show with me and doing the show with me. We took a couple of days off. I've been doing family stuff, and we had an extra podcast in the hopper because we did two that one night. So we're pretty much caught up now. So we're back at it. It's a Thursday night here in Salt Lake. We got a little bit of thunder rolling through the valley today. Not much, but a little. And that's where we're at. As far as COVID-19 goes, everyone's still talking about it. The situation's still fluid, but the government is kind of starting to get a little antsy. They're tired of waiting. They're tired of because every day the government stays shut down, or the businesses rather stay shut down. It hurts a little more, and it's going to be a little bit harder to get them fired back up again. So that's kind of where, from my perspective, where I see us at.
Well, then we kind of like to start these with any glimmers of hope. Light at the end of the tunnel. And really, it's a shame I don't see many. No, there was New Zealand. Did you read about New Zealand recently?
No.
And that, again, is if we can trust the headlines and the articles. And even the interview with the Prime Minister of New Zealand, a woman that I would marry tomorrow. I find her just a beautiful soul.
She seems so down to earth and just...
Very much. Oh, yeah. When she was
really
talking
genuine.
to kids. She was talking to the kids about the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy, during the
I
lockdown.
did see a clip of that. Yeah,
that was kind of sweet. And I know I'm going to overstate this, but essentially they've beat coronavirus. They've got it somehow contained. I don't know if that means they've opened back up. It certainly doesn't mean there's zero cases in New Zealand. It doesn't. That's not what it means. But there's a glimmer of hope there, and I should stop speaking on it right there because I know I'll say something inaccurate.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to remember, why were they showing her? Why did they show us that cute clip of her talking to the kids at Easter? I can't remember why, but there was something about New Zealand, how they were treating the virus or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and I don't even know what their total numbers were, number of confirmed cases and number of deaths and all that. But
I remember I saw that one comment from one of the videos I watched where they said Australia had flattened the curve. So if Australia did it, seems to me like there's a good chance New Zealand might have been able to do it as well.
Yeah. Well, anymore, Joe, when I hear flatten the curve, those two words or three words have been bantered so frequently over the past month or so that I'm looking for something else now. I want to see we're on the downside of the curve now. That's what we're all waiting to hear.
I want to see bottom of that curve.
Yeah. And I think the big measuring stick that's been put out there by many countries is that you need to go 2 straight weeks with a decrease every day of that 2 weeks in number of infections, number of deaths, or whatever the metric is. Then you can start easing your restrictions and, start putting out announcements. But, things are just going to be different when I don't think anybody's going to feel really comfortable until this thing is gone. We don't see one new case for like a year. Then we might get back to normal, and I'll head down to the sports bar right here and watch a game and, and feel comfortable putting my hands on the table and stuff. It's a different world we're in, man.
Yeah, it is now and forever, probably. Yeah. I mean, So I looked at the Utah headlines briefly before we started the podcast. They said we only have like 46 cases in Utah, which I'm very happy to hear. I know I don't want to diminish any deaths. I mean, 46 deaths. That's a big number. And my condolences to all the families. But I really think it kind of speaks to how Utah is taking this seriously. I think we probably did flatten the curve, is what that tells me.
I think so. I think so. And have you seen over the past week or two how California has been raised as an example of a state that took things seriously right from the get-go, and so they have vastly fewer cases and deaths than like New York and Italy and Spain and some of these other places. They did, I guess, draconian measures right up front. I think it was Contra Costa County. I want to say that I guess the health director came out way before Trump did and said, "This is serious. We have to be serious about this." And they still have huge numbers because they have 22 million people in the state, so they're just statistics alone, but and Utah, I think, has kind of followed that one too. Even being a red state, as red as we are, Utah took it seriously from the get-go. And my niece is a good example of it. And my friends, we haven't had a jam in over 2 months now, and we've all taken it very seriously. And I think it has helped. I think it really has. What do we have? Less than 2,000 total cases and 46 deaths.
Yeah.
I think. I'm sure I'm off there a little.
Sounds about right, though. Yeah, and I think I saw something on LA not too long ago, and it looked like they had flattened the curve compared to New York. And I'm not sure if that's because of the steps they took or because they're a little more spread out than New York. They're not as on top of each other as New York is. So that might be something worth looking into to see, okay, has California done well, and how did they do it? What were the steps they took that really helped?
Yeah. Well, and remember, California is the 6th largest economy in the world. Did you know that statistic?
I did. Sometimes it's 5th. It kind of fluctuates.
Yeah.
I knew that back when Arnold Schwarzenegger was governor, because they were kind of saying it's a big deal.
Yeah. So, if a state like that can do it, it's and they're not quite the travel hub that New York is. But they're pretty close. They're not far behind.
They've got almost 3 New Yorks, and they got LA, San Diego, and San Francisco. Pretty big hubs.
Yeah. Well, and something else that might have happened there was on the West Coast, you get people mainly traveling in from the Eastern countries, the China and Japan and places like that. On the West Coast in New York, you get people coming in from Europe. And by the time we started taking this seriously, Europe was already knees deep in coronavirus. And they were all flying into New York for concerts and to watch Colbert and things like that. And I don't think they took action as quickly as California did. So say what you will about the blue state libs out there on the West Coast, but they've done a few things right, But again, it goes back to that dividing line, Main Joe, and we spoke about it before we started recording tonight. I'm on the fence. I can see we need to open things. We need to open things back up, and we need to keep people safe. And I would hate to be the one in the middle of that decision right now, because it's essentially pulling a slot machine handle. Georgia just opened up, right? And there's salons, bowling alleys, tattoo parlors, all that kind of stuff. And if we see their numbers spike in the next week or two, then that governor is going to be pilloried in the town square.
Well,
and
it seems like everyone, that's the trend, though. Even Utah, I just read before we started, they're opening restaurants up Friday, and it says they're able to open up, but whether or not restaurants do it, of course, is up to them.
Up to them, yeah. And then who's going to go? There's another one.
Well, and that's the other thing, yeah. And I saw we mentioned that in the last podcast, and I actually saw a headline come through YouTube or whatever, and they said they were talking about the same thing. They may not pay the person that owns the establishment to open up and stay open if people don't come. Those protesters that are out there they're the minority.
Yeah. Yes, they are. A tiny fraction of a minority. the ones in Michigan that protested inside the Capitol today, some of them carrying firearms. They're like 0.002% of the population.
Well, is that their IQ? Oh, no, that's bad joke.
Yeah, well, it's well, I'll tell you this though, as soon as the huddle down here opens up, I'm going to go in there at 11 a.m. right when they open and get a French dip, and of course I'll be careful and I won't be close to anybody and I'll wash my hands, but I'm going to show up there to I guess just lend some support. Maybe my $12 will help them out in some way. I hope.
Yeah, every little bit helps. Yeah, I mean, at some point, the shutting down of the economy, I don't want to echo anybody, but it's going to hurt us more than the coronavirus, right? I mean, I even heard today that in China, it's cleared up the air so much because everyone's staying home, they're locked down big time, but the air is cleaned up so much that people that normally would have died because of the pollution, because they have lung issues, asthma or whatever, have not died. So the coronavirus, in a way, has saved some lives. As crazy as that sounds.
Isn't that
taken a lot, saved some.
So you're talking about it.
So yeah, if you were going to die of this pollution in China, and then the air got cleaned up because of COVID-19, and you didn't catch COVID-19 and didn't die from it, then you're golden.
Yeah, you're talking what we call an exquisite irony.
Yes, well, yeah.
This disease that is killing a lot of people is saving a lot of people on the other end.
Well, some anyway. Yeah, it's kind of a crazy thought. Yeah.
Who knows what the numbers are, really?
Right.
Yeah.
But back to A Glimmer of Hope. I remember we mentioned on the podcast a couple of casts ago that Chicago had something that was showing promise, and I think it's still showing promise. And so I think they're developing an antiviral treatment that is showing some promise.
Yes, remdesivir. Is this the name of it?
Boy.
Remdesivir.
Something like that.
I heard Brad Pitt talking about it. No, Anthony Fauci talking about it. There's a little joke on SNL. Did you see SNL?
I saw Brad Pitt doing Fauci.
Fauci, yeah.
Very good. Yeah,
it was great. And Fauci was speaking again in very clear terms so that I can understand them, very simple, clear terms. And he's saying what this has proven so far, the evidence we have shows that it will help people showing symptoms recover on average 3 or 4 days quicker than they otherwise would have. So there's a glimmer right there too.
Yeah.
That's a great glimmer. It's not the cure. It's, you get an injection and then an hour later you go home. It's certainly nothing like that, but just the brilliance of these researchers and they're working around the clock right now.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah. Hats off. To Joe's salute to these people.
Salute.
They've had their eyes in microscopes for the past month and a half, 3 months. Just what is that? And how do we do this? And, well, now that we've done a salute, we got to come up with a condemnation, a To Joe's condemnation.
To Joe's thumbs down.
A thumbs down.
2 thumbs down.
Well, again, it was Brad Pitt doing the Fauci thing, and it showed the clip of Trump saying, disinfectants that wipe this stuff out in a minute, and then he actually used the word injection.
In Trump's defense, he did not actually say inject disinfectants. However,
fair enough.
However, it was muddled enough, and the words were in there that some people believed him, some people tried it, some people had to call the poison control hotline. And so, that's what we've been saying all along. This doofus head needs to watch his words. People, listen, it matters what he says.
He doesn't get it. Yeah.
He doesn't. And even my sister, she was like, oh, the fake news spun this. And yeah, they did to a degree. I will give her that. Mm-hmm. But you can't go and get pissed about this and not get pissed about all the other stupid shit he said and act like that was okay or, I mean, sure, the news is looking for stuff and they're going to blow it out of proportion, but we have evidence that people called the poison control hotline and it was a result of them listening to him.
Well, and numerous poison control agencies saw an uptick in
Multiple
calls.
states, right?
Multiple,
Something
yes.
like that, yeah.
So the president's words matter,
They
and
do.
his big problem isn't that he doesn't think. His problem is that he believes whatever he says behind the podium is going to be great. Totally
he thinks he
accepted,
knows.
you know?
Yeah. He thinks he knows. Hey, have you ever tried this? He's like looking over to the side at the doctor, and then later he tries to say, "Oh, I was doing it ironically." Whatever, dude. Or
just sarcastically.
Yeah, he's sarcastically. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
He doesn't even know what that means.
And he says, "I was asking." He said, "I was asking you, a reporter like you," and no, he was looking right
over
at
to the
Dr.
side.
Hurt.
He was saying, "Why don't you try that? Why don't you look into that?" Kind of
sounds
thing. Like
interesting to me.
Yeah, like he's some kind of MIT scientist because his uncle taught there, I guess, or something.
Yeah, man.
Crazy.
Time for a Two Joes.
So Two Joes thumbs down
for injecting disinfectants.
Donald Trump for not watching his words a little more closely. And I want to give another Two Joes thumbs down to Mike Pence to go to the Mayo Clinic where they have a mask. You have to have a mask or in order to be there, and he doesn't wear one. And
he was warned. He knew, but he's the vice president. You can't make me, you know.
Well, and I don't think it was so much that as he, when they first CDC first came out recommending masks, Donald Trump was out there telling us about it, and he was like, "I don't think I'm going to do it. I'm not going to do it." So Pence was just doing that to please his boss. That's the only reason why Pence does anything is to please Trump, to kiss Trump's ass.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's we have exactly the wrong leader in the time of an outbreak. We have exactly the wrong leadership. CNN, Ari Melber, I watch him every now and then, and he did a montage of I think it was 3 different outbreaks that Obama had to deal with during his 8 years in office. And it just showed him behind the podium talking about science is going to lead the way, and we've got to be careful, and there might be disruptions, and we're going to do our best to get information to you and everything, you know.
Voice of reason.
Yes, very reasonable.
That's what we needed, yeah.
Yeah, and he didn't sugarcoat it, and he didn't worry about the stock market so much. And granted, I think go ahead.
And he had good people in those positions that mattered.
Yes, and Fauci was part of that too. The Ebola one especially, and I think Ebola killed 12,000 Americans, I want to say.
Wow.
Who knows how much worse it might have been, maybe Trump was just dealt an incredibly infectious, contagious disease that nobody saw coming. Maybe Obama would have done just as badly. I doubt it, but maybe he would have, Because Mangel, this disease feels like it can travel on a cloud and drop into your screen door at night and get into your nose while you're sleeping. That's what this feels like now.
It does. I mean, like I said, a podcast or 2 ago, every time I go to shopping, Costco or Smith's, I wonder what I'm bringing back. It's a little bit. It gets in your head. It's nerve-wracking for sure. But a lot of people did see it coming, dude. A lot of people did. Bill Gates saw it coming
5 years ago.
I've been watching this one doctor who's been trying to scream about it from the rooftops for a couple of decades now. And his big thing is that, look, you can blame the wet markets all you want, and those probably should be shut down. However, also as a big factor in all this, where other viruses have come from, are our factory farms, our corporate farms, where they have millions of chickens that never see the light of day, piled on top of each other, as bad as the wet markets, if not worse.
Exactly right.
We're pumping those chickens and those pigs and those cows full of antibiotics, truckloads of antibiotics.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare. And if Fauci's going to say we should shut down the wet markets, then I would love it. Fauci, if you're listening, and I know you are, shut down or at least put a stopper on those factory farms. Let's not open any new ones out.
Yeah.
Let's try and figure out how to make the ones we have better, safer, because they're a huge deal. I've been finding out.
Yes, they are. You just launched me into, I think it was a Vice News. Do you ever watch Vice News?
I do.
Some of their stuff.
Yeah.
I think it was Vice News, and it was only like a 12-minute segment I watched, but it started with what coronavirus does to the body, and then it got into where it came from. Then it got into much more general stuff, and this one was a jaw dropper, an eye opener. It said there are probably 1 million, maybe 2 million viruses in animals that we have no idea about. We have no clue what their DNA is, what their genomes are, how they mutate year to year. We have no clue about them. And what very likely happened here with coronavirus is that we got the wet market in Wuhan, which just as easily could have been one of these factory farms in Iowa, where chickens and cows and pigs and everything, they're all not together, but how they're all mingled.
Yep.
So you get 1.5 million viruses in all these different animals, and you stick all these animals together. Eventually, 1 or 2 of these viruses will get together and mutate into something. Essentially, the point of it was we're given a breeding ground for this sort of thing to happen, for a virus like this to develop. If there's 2 million viruses floating around we know nothing about, it's not inconceivable. Well, we know it's not. It's happened throughout history, and it's going to keep happening. We've got to start mitigating these wet markets and factory farms. It used to be just wet markets you and I denounced.
Right,
Yeah.
I want to add factory farms to that. And you're right. It's been going on throughout history. We can go back. This video I watched, he went back to when Europeans came over to America. We practically wiped out the Native American population with our diseases. Where did those diseases come from? How come it didn't work the other way? How come the Native Americans didn't give us diseases?
And
do you know the answer to that?
Yeah. Why didn't we get kicked back into the sea and run back to England with our tail between our legs? Why didn't it happen that way? That's a great question.
It's because of the domestication of animals. It's when we start putting animals together, we start living with them, we start interacting with them, then that's when the viruses jump from animals to humans, trying to stay alive. The virus wants to live. The Indians didn't really have that. The Native Americans, rather, didn't really have that. I mean, they didn't have buffaloes caged up or corralled or anything like that. The buffaloes are out there running free.
Yeah.
And so that's why he said that Europeans came and gave Native Americans their diseases that they brought over from their domestication of animals over in Europe.
Yeah.
I thought that was fascinating. So this has been going on forever. And now that we've got so many animals, because we have so many people, we're trying to feed all these people. We have these factory farms, wet markets. They're large, they're crazy. And we're creating our own nightmare here. It's just, it's insane.
I hope this doesn't sound like I'm jumping topics too quickly, but
we can.
It's a good segue into a quote from Albert Einstein. And it actually pertains very well to what we're talking about, factory farming and wet markets. He said, "I cannot see any possible future of total world peace until all of humankind evolves to a vegetarian diet." And that he actually said that. I read that in numerous of his biographies. So wow. I feel confident that he actually did say that. And that man loved liver and onions. He was not a vegetarian himself,
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, my wife really wants us to have to. She's the one who showed me that video. That guy who was telling us that these factory farms and how the Europeans brought it over and why these viruses are created. She really wants to go vegetarian, and I don't know. I mean, I don't eat a lot of beef, but I eat a lot of chicken, and we're talking bird flu. We're talking factory farms. That's where the bird flu came from.
Yeah, and 10 years from now, there'll be another virus we've never heard of, and and it just happens to mutate perfectly to attack humans.
And instead of a 3% kill rate, we'll have a 10% kill rate or a 40% kill rate.
Or 40. Ebola, I think, got as high as 60. I think it killed. And that was one of the reasons that it didn't get so widespread, is that when it got into people's systems, it killed them quick. Yeah. And so they didn't go out into society and transmit this thing.
That's what makes this one so tough.
Yeah, it doesn't kill many people. In fact, I think the majority of people don't ever know that they had it. And it's, my niece, she was lucky that she felt mild symptoms. So she went and got tested.
And she
easily. She easily could have spread that to me and to the rest of my family if she hadn't known.
Yeah.
But we've hammered that point to death.
Well, since we're on that topic real quick, how's your sister doing? She mentioned
Fine.
that she was having a headache and okay.
Yeah, doing fine. Woke up the next day, headache was mostly gone, and it was, I don't know, probably old age and a little bit of wine. It was part of that problem, that issue, if you will. And she's doing all right.
Good.
I'm glad to say.
Good.
To say. And we're pretty protected here in Utah. You know, I'm not going to run out to a bowling alley tomorrow, but I feel safe here in Utah. I mean, imagine what the poor citizens of Wuhan are doing right now. They're starting to lift some of the lockdown in Wuhan.
Right.
But they stay. It's still there are people in the street, but you never see groups, and they're masked up and they're wearing eye covering and they're grabbing their groceries and they're walking straight home. And, and that's what it's like. And
I imagine that's what it'll be like in New York City too. That city was hit hard, man. That city was hit hard.
Well, yeah. When you talk about getting hit hard, and again, I got to go back to bashing Trump. But I want to be fair-minded on this one too. We don't just lead the world in confirmed cases and deaths. We lead the world by a long shot, by a long measure. We have 1/3 of the confirmed cases here in America, and 1/4 of the deaths here in America. Now, is that just totally incompetent leadership when we really needed it back in early to mid-January? Or is it just that America is, like Trump said, where the action is? And when you got people coming to America, you know, it's essentially the center of the universe as far as we know. It's the center of pretty much everything on the planet. And so how fair is it to just label Trump totally incompetent? Now, did you hear that he was given many briefings back in January and early February? This is starting to spread. This is starting to get big. Did you hear about what do they call them? The presidential daily briefings?
Yeah.
And it looks like he was just concerned about the stock market and his reelection. That's all he was really concerned about. And he might have just thought, well, we have brilliant scientists here. They'll take care of it. They'll come up with a vaccine quick. Everything will be fine. It's not going to hit America hard at all. And boom, America, within 2 weeks, America took over the world, and there's no going back now. We're going, when this thing is finally over and done with, then the numbers are going to show America got hit the hardest by a long shot, by a long way. So I'm trying to be fair, but I lean towards incompetence there, Mangio. Where do you?
Yeah, I mean, the reason I lean toward incompetence and not taking it seriously soon enough is because we're still trying to figure out the testing thing. We're still trying to get enough tests so that we can start tracking, start containing somewhat, and figure out, okay, where is it the worst? Because one of the big stories that was running last week, I didn't really dive into it because I've been trying to stay away from the news because it's been getting to me so much, is that we had way more cases and that went undetected before we knew. I'm not saying that right. But you know what I mean? Like in California, there's really like 10 times as many cases as they're reporting because we don't test and because we didn't know.
Yeah.
We didn't start testing soon enough. And, you know, have you heard those stories or those headlines?
Yes.
You know what I'm trying to say? Can you say it better than me so our listeners aren't too confused?
I don't know if I can. I can give a range, I think, that might help simplify. That for every country on the world that gives you a total count of confirmed cases that they tested for positive, then multiply that by at least 5 on the low end to 15 on the high end. So that means that if there are, we just passed 1 million confirmed cases in America.
Yeah.
That means on the low end, there's probably 5 million. On the bad end, there's 15 million. And that might even be low, you know. And again, these are people who have it and they have no idea they have it, and they never will. It'll 2 weeks, it'll be through their system, it'll be gone, and they'll never know they had it, you know. But they might have spread it to their grandma who died 2 weeks later.
Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to say, because people didn't know they had it. We didn't know it was going on, and it got spread and people were dying, but we didn't really know why, because it was an older population or people with health concerns. And so it wasn't, it didn't raise enough red flags for us to freak out. And
Yeah.
so the number of
Yeah.
cases actually in the US is way more than the million they're reporting. Because of lack of testing, and we just got started late because we didn't know what was going on. This thing is hard to detect.
You know what, a stat that I just thought to look up, and I'll do that for our next podcast.
Okay.
Is we've got just over 1 million confirmed cases right now, right? Mm-hmm. I would like to know if the stats have been collected, or the single statistic, what is the total number of tests administered up to this point in America, just America? Have we done 5 million tests, 10 million? How many total tests have we done?
Yeah, and that's a good question.
I would like to know that.
I've seen some headlines, because Trump always likes to say, anyone who wants a test can get a test, blah, blah, blah. Well, we all know that's not true.
Not true.
We're still trying to get the tests out there. We're still trying to up production. So, yeah, that's a good question. I don't know what the answer is to that.
I want to say like 5 million total tests, just over 5 million to this point. So that means 1 in 5 Americans have tested positive. And that seems actually conservative.
Yeah. Those aren't great odds. I mean, it doesn't make me want to venture outside and shake hands and hug people. And
yeah, my spring cleaning help and I went down to Target on Sunday to get some. Well, we tried to find bleach and there was none.
Wow.
But we got some other supplies. And walking in there, she had the spray hand sanitizer. She gave me a mask. I had some the goggles that I use when I do weed whacking out in the yard, so I was covered. I looked like I was in the movie Tombstone, man.
Yeah, they say that kind of thing could go on through 2022, I want to say, like for 2 years. I mean, it's, no one knows. Everyone's just predicting. But
well, it depends on persistence here, too. Our last podcast, we talked about SARS. And you remember Dr. Fauci was on the Laura Ingraham show, and he mentioned they were working on a vaccine for SARS, but then SARS just disappeared, just went away. And how do you explain that? And maybe Trump is right, that this thing is just going to go away.
Like magic?
Like SARS did. Well, I guess.
I hope so. I hope he's right. But I'm thinking it's going to be more like the Spanish flu in 1918. That's where I'm predicting.
The second wave.
I'm predicting it might slow down in the summer because of self-isolation and social distancing and wearing masks. Yeah. It's gonna slow way down, and hopefully the heat and the sun will have an effect. But in the fall, when kids go back to school and everything, I really predict it'll spike again.
Well, even more bigger numbers, larger numbers than kids going back to school in the fall. Think in the summer when the weather's warm, you get a lot of people hiking and going out and mountain biking and going to spreading out and doing recreational things. When the weather turns cold, what do people do? They congregate. They go to bars and movie theaters and bowling alleys.
Stay indoors.
And that's when it gets spread.
Then you got noses that are running because of the cold, and then maybe some sneezing going on. Like I was wondering, I wonder how much the spring pollen and allergies affect the spread of this, because I know I have to take allergy medicine every single morning, or else I get sneezy and stuff. And if I had the virus, that would have to contribute to me spreading it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely right. So I've recently, I think I told you that I've been going up to Park City recently to look at buying a condo, and I'm leaning now towards holding off because of the uncertainty that's going on right now. Yeah. That's a big chunk of money to go put down on a place, and then a second wave hits in November. I'm screwed. I'm sitting on 2 mortgage payments, and that would just sink me. That would drain everything I have. So that's another tough thing.
Unless the price is rock bottom, I think I'd probably wait on that.
Yeah, if she'd take like $8,000 for the condo, then we're good.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, I'll buy 2 of them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what prices do and how things go. To kind of get back to that topic of reopening, because it's happening and we're wondering if the timing is right. But on the other hand, you got people dying of coronavirus. At what point do people start dying because of the shutdown?
Excellent point. Yeah.
Like I heard on Joe Rogan the other day, and I haven't verified this, but he said he was talking to a detective friend of his. He said typically they deal with like 1 suicide a week. Now he says they're dealing with like 5 a day.
Wow.
30 million people have lost jobs. And I remember people committing suicide when we had that crash back in 08, 09 too.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I think if I remember right, the owner of Lakai, one of the fanciest restaurants here in town, when that recession hit, he took his own life because everything he put his life into that place, Lakai. I mean, it was amazing.
And it was gone.
It was gone, and he couldn't deal.
Yeah. And I'm really glad you brought that point back up, Joe. I wanted to ask you if you ever saw, and if you have, do you remember the movie The Big Short? Did you ever see The Big Short?
I did see it, but I don't remember being a fan of it.
Okay, well, that's fine. I was a huge fan, but that's irrelevant. Our personal takes on it don't matter. The statistics, the one statistic I remember being cited in that movie was from Brad Pitt's character, and I won't give you the build up to it. I'll just say what it was. He said he was admonishing these 2 trader stockbrokers who just made the deal of a lifetime. And they were cheering and they were whooping and hollering because they just made millions of dollars. And he said, "Stop that. You stop your dancing." And they go, "What? We're happy. We want to celebrate." And he goes, "Do you realize what you just did? You just bet against the American economy." And they knew the American economy was about to just crater back in 2007, 2008. And he said, "Do you realize that for every 1 percentage point that unemployment goes up, 40,000 people die?" And unemployment back in 07, 08, unemployment went from 4% to about 10%. So that's 6 times, that's 240,000 people die because they lost health insurance, or they just couldn't feed their kids anymore.
Can't feed their kids, yeah.
Couldn't buy their insulin,
they have life insurance. They think they're worth more dead.
Yeah, that families, too. Suicides, all that kind of stuff. So to bring that into the current day, we've just seen 30 million people go on the unemployment rolls and losing health insurance and suicides and all these kind of things. Can't feed their
families. I'm still waiting for my check from the stimulus package.
Yeah, there you go.
A lot of people haven't got it. I think they said like half the people haven't got it.
I don't think Big T has gotten his yet. I just talked to somebody else the other day that hadn't gotten theirs yet. And I got mine. And I didn't need a dime. I didn't need a penny. And I got $275.60. And I even got a letter in my mail like a week after the money was put in my account saying, "Hey, we just sent you $275, from the office of the president." And I said, "Well, why did you waste your money sending me this letter? I got the money like 2 weeks ago and I didn't need it to start with. And then you went through the added expense of mailing me a freaking letter telling me that about the money that I already got."
In case you didn't notice.
Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah, I never pay attention to my checking account.
Signed Donald J. Trump.
Yeah.
You heard the story about him delaying the payments because he wanted to get his name on the check somehow. Like people even see checks anymore. It's just direct deposit into your account these days, right?
Yeah, typically. Most of it is.
Most of it.
But yeah, I'm glad you brought that point back up. How serious that is.
It's back to why we're sitting on the fence on this. It's like, some people need to work because we can't count on the government getting us UBI or checks to help pay for groceries and things. And what's the word I'm looking for? I probably won't be able to find it, but it affects the poorer people more greatly, right? Rich people can afford to hunker down, lay low for a while, But people that waitresses and waiters and people that need to work to feed their families, I mean,
what are they doing?
They've got to go out into the war zone along with the doctors and nurses and the hospital maintenance crews and the supermarket workers and checkout people. And, it's like,
it makes me wonder what Shy Joe's been up to. I haven't talked to him in about a month now. And last I knew, he was pulling graveyard shifts at a factory over on the west side. Right. Is that an essential job? Is he still working? And if not, then what's he up to now?
Good question.
And has he got a stimulus check? That'd be interesting to know. I'm just not qualified here, man, Joe.
Me either.
I can't really relate to it. I'm in my cocoon and I'm still getting a paycheck, and I have no idea the not just individual cases of suffering, but the magnitude of suffering.
Right. Yeah. Are there really, like Joe Rogan was relaying, that many suicides a day? I haven't heard a single story on that, and I haven't looked into it. But that being said, every time I have looked into a story that Joe Rogan puts on the podcast, it came out true. Like when I first heard about the unemployment websites crashing, that was from the Joe Rogan podcast. And then I went and looked it up and found out it was true, but it wasn't coming across my newswire about unemployment websites crashing left, right, and center in multiple states.
And the small business loan websites crashing. I saw some headlines on that one. I did see that one. So it's a mess.
It's a mess.
Well, the main Joe, let's. I'm going to try to be fair-minded here again, but I think you know which way I'm slanted on this one. I read the headlines, and I'm left with the impression that most of the stimulus funds trying to get us out of get us through this virus, most of those hundreds of billions of dollars, trillions of dollars.
At this point, trillions,
well over 2 trillion, over 4 trillion by now. It's over 4 trillion, I think.
Depends on how.
Most of that is going to the big corporations and the big companies that got a huge tax break back in 2017, and yet they're 30 days from bankruptcy if they don't get $200 or a $20 billion check from the government. And yet, here you are waiting for yours. Big T is waiting for his, and so many people are waiting for something. Is that really where we need to be focusing? And then we've talked about this. We get Lindsey Graham up there saying, well, we can't give an extra $600 a week to these people because they'll never come back to work. They'll just stay at home. And that's what Republicans think of Americans. They're fine giving billions of dollars to Delta Airlines, but, the server down at the sports bar down here has to wait weeks or months. And if she gets any money, it's $1,200. And she has to make that last 12 for 10 weeks. It's I'm crazy that way. It is. But I'm going off of headlines again. I'm just going off of what I'm being fed every day.
Well, yeah.
And reading the articles and watching
But you're also cross-verifying it with people like Big T hasn't got his check. This person hasn't got his check. I haven't got my check. And then that PPE thing is like, businesses were allowed to apply for that. So we tried to apply for that, and we tried to apply, and Wells Fargo was like, oh, we have no more applications. And everything I've heard on the news has been the same. It's verified what I've run into. We haven't been able to get a loan. We haven't been able to get that $1,200 check. We've got nothing. And now they think they voted on another package this week. It's like, whoopity-doo. I haven't seen anything yet. What makes me think I'm going to get anything after that? And I feel like we're on our own. I'm on my own, and that's why I'm not really upset about governments wanting to reopen the economy. Personally, I'm going to continue social distancing and isolating just because I don't feel like it's safe enough for me to go out yet. However, people need to work, and if it allows some people to go back to work and feed their families and things, then I'm all for that. But some people may die because of it. It's.
Well, we know that people will. Don't say some may. We know that some will, if not many will. That's the nature of this beast.
Yeah, that's true.
And what do you think about Trump using his presidential powers to order the meat plants to stay open, when those are hot spots of infections right now?
If I was an employee at that pork meat processing plant in South Dakota, and they've had positive cases there, and the upper management was saying we need to close this plant down, and then Trump saying no, you keep it open. I don't think I'd be going back to work. If I could afford to not go back to work, I don't think I would. He can't make me go work.
Well, yes, they can. They can threaten you.
Here's
another headline that I read, and again, take a headline for what it might be. Is that if these plants are declared open and you refuse to go, you are voluntarily quitting your position. You don't qualify for unemployment. You get no benefits at all. Yeah. So that's a tricky situation. That's tricky. Too.
Like I said, I'd have to be able to afford not to go in.
Mm-hmm.
If I felt like I had to go in, if I felt like, well, I'm not going to get $1,200, and even if I got the $1,200, it ain't going to last me 10 weeks.
Yeah.
That'd be a tough call. But I've got a brother-in-law who's working at a plant that makes food, and they're essential, and they're staying open. And I don't know if they've got any cases or not yet. But, he goes to work and he's nervous every day because what is he bringing home to his family? Like you had that great story about how people were giving up their RVs that they weren't using for doctors and nurses who didn't want to bring it home to their families or whatever.
Yeah.
And, in a plant that Trump has forced open, and would you be bringing that home to your family?
So yeah.
I'd be sending him my paycheck and then I'd be living in a trailer or you know what I mean? That would have to be something else to consider. Yeah, pitching a tent on the company grounds. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
You're making me want to have to work. Well, I don't want to bring it home to my family. I'll sacrifice myself.
And even if I do get the coronavirus, I'll probably survive it. But my 6-year-old with asthma just might not. So
God, no easy answers, is there, man?
There are none. There really are none. It's the one thing I will hand to President Trump is he was given an all-timer right here. This was we haven't seen this since 1918. He keeps saying 1917. It was 1918.
1918.
Yeah. But this is an all-timer.
It really is. It really is.
I don't know if Obama would have done better. I don't know if frickin' Abraham Lincoln would have done any better on this one. But it's a shite show. That's one way to say it. This is a shite show, and history will tell us what's really going on. Did you hear Jared Kushner just today saying that essentially this was a great success story in government management? Now, how can you say that?
Well, they're trying to rewrite history, man. They have short memories. They're trying to rewrite history. I mean, Trump's trying to say that. Oh, a lot of people are saying, don't worry about the virus back then when I said it. And it was in my briefings and everything. And it's like, regardless, you were never a voice of reason. You were never a voice we could count on. I got to believe Obama would have done better. If for that alone, just because of his oratory skills and his ability to comfort people and calm people and stay grounded and not think he knew the cure in his head. Oh, have you tried this? Have you tried that in the middle of a fucking press briefing? What a fucking idiot, man.
Well, and you just raised a point in my head there. The difference between Obama and Trump was it really seems that Trump is only worried about re-election in the stock market. That's all he really cares about. Yeah, and himself. Yeah, his image. Mm-hmm. And Obama, when he just came out and said, listen, we're going to go with the scientists here, and if they give us news that we don't like, that's inconvenient, we're still going to go with it. And, that's what we got to do. I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially what Obama did. By Obama saying those things, he was actually helping his reelection chances. People liked being told the straight truth, this is what we're dealing with right here. Instead of, Ebola's here and it's killed 10,000 people, but it'll be down to zero here pretty soon. It'll be close to zero. And we've got this pretty well under control. It's not going to be a pandemic. We're fine. We're going to be just fine. Obama didn't do that crap.
No.
He was just saying, this is serious, and I'm essentially deferring everything. I'm going to spend very little time talking to you behind the podium, and then I'm going to have my advisors, my scientists come up here and talk to you. And that got him reelected in 2012, or one of the things that got him reelected. I don't know. Even diehard Trump supporters, I think, are starting to jump ship. Not all of them, certainly, not all of them.
Well, yeah. Speaking of shite shows, did you hear that they're pulling Bernie off of the New York ballot for the primary that's coming up?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, they're pulling Bernie
Didn't hear.
and other Democrat people that have suspended their campaigns. So you can't vote for Bernie in the primary in New York, even though he should be on the ballot technically. So
Wow.
Andrew Yang, I guess, is filing suit because they pulled him off the ballot too.
Yeah, I did see he was suing New York. Yeah,
and that's why
okay.
they're pulling him off the ballot, and it's like, that's never how they've done it before, and why are they doing it now? And New York's a democratically run state, I believe, so I don't know why they're doing it. Yeah, again, it's because they want to defeat Bernie more so than they want to defeat Trump. At least that's kind of the narrative. And I kind of believe that, because Bernie's not really a Democrat, and the last thing they want is someone to come in there and ruffle the feathers of the corporatists. They won't get that sweet, sweet money for their campaigns that they're after. I totally believe it. And now there's something trending that say they want Bernie to unsuspend his campaign and make a comeback because Biden's embroiled in this whole sex scandal thing now, and there's some credible evidence. There's a call-in to the Larry King show. Have you seen any of that stuff?
Be careful with that word credible. Be careful there. It might be, it might not be. I saw the same headlines you did. I watched the same clip that you did. I don't know the credible part.
Really? Okay.
I'm not sure.
I'll give you that.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anybody debunk it or call anybody out on that. So as far as I'm concerned right now, it seems pretty credible. But you're right. I haven't really verified it or
I haven't even
cross-checked it.
Tara Reid. I haven't seen her interviewed. Have you seen any?
No, but this was who called into the Larry King show was her mom.
Her mom, yeah.
And that was her mom's voice on the show saying, basically, look, my daughter ran into some shit and had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
A very prominent senator.
Well, it's very important that we, again, stay fair-minded. It might be true. It might
You're
not.
You're right. Yeah, but when Biden's had other creepy things happen, like he's touched people on the shoulders and he's touched their head, and he smells their hair.
He smells their
hair.
hair.
A little bit too creepy, and then something like this seems pretty credible. So what do you think the Democrats are going to do in this case? I mean,
sweep it away.
Yeah,
as best
right
they
now
can.
they're trying to defend Biden, and they're trying to just basically sweep it under the rug. Even I guess some of formerly Bernie supporters are basically on board with that tactic, I guess.
Yeah.
It'll be
that one. Well, that one, of course, is just raw red meat for Fox News. That they're covering that 10 times as much as they are coronavirus.
Wow,
that's their focus now.
Interesting.
Why isn't Pelosi talking about this sexual allegation? Why isn't the DNC talking about it?
How can they do that when Trump has a fucking check with his name on it paid to a porn star to keep her mouth shut when his wife was had a 3-month-old at home? How can they not talk about that? But they're going to talk about Biden's maybe incident that happened.
Well, that's where you you speak back to the true ugliness and sliminess of politics. That's
Fox News.
All this is. And Fox
News. They're extra slimy.
Yes, they are.
They really are.
Yeah, there's extra slime on them. I can't watch Don Lemon. I really cannot watch that guy. The same way I can't watch Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham. They're kind of the same sliminess, but if I had to say which one has an extra layer of sliminess, it's Fox News. It's the right. It's the Republicans.
They're definitely more slimy. Democrats are slimy. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah.
Republicans are way more slimy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and proud of it.
They're
willfully ignorant on things, and they spread ignorance gleefully, joyfully. Rush Limbaugh the other day was talking about coronavirus and the spread and how it mutates and everything, and he almost slipped up he almost slipped up and said, well, it's just the way that this stuff evolves by natural selection. But he stopped himself. He says, okay, well, I'm not going to say evolution, because we all know evolution isn't true. But it's the way these things change over time, and all that.
Dance around it.
It danced right around it. And then I thought right there again, that's another perfect piece of evidence of why I am anti-Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not an independent. I'm not a liberal. I don't know what the hell I am.
Neither anymore.
Than I am anti-Republican. I know that for a fact. And that was another piece of evidence. Rush Limbaugh. And he's given us so many. As has Glenn Beck and David Duke and Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham. And man, we can, Mark Levin, we can keep going on and
amazing.
on and on.
I think I saw something too where they were saying, even though like Hannity and Ingraham were saying like, oh, the coronavirus isn't anything to worry about, blah, blah, blah. Behind the scenes, Fox News was making preparations for when the coronavirus would take off, as if, they knew it was a big deal, but they're not going to tell their listeners that. At least not yet, because it doesn't support the president or whatever reasoning they had. But behind the scenes, they knew what was going on, and they were making preparations and things.
Yeah,
this shows their two-facedness and their.
Well, we've talked before about how maybe the Democrats, to win this next election, need to go low, need to put out some slimy political ads and stuff. Here's a good example of it. Is let's start putting some things out that we say came right from the mouth of Hannity or Ingraham or this or that, just like in the Roy Moore election in Alabama when Doug Collins beat him. There was some underhanded things that the Democrats, flat out lies, flat out falsehoods that they put out there, political ads on Facebook, on social media. And damn it, Mean Joe, I forgot the point I was driving at there.
Well, to get dirtier, I would like it if they, instead of getting dirtier, they just put out better candidates, like Biden.
Well, they don't win.
That's the best they can do. And then there's a good argument to be made that they don't necessarily want to win. They just want to stay in power, keep the corporate checks coming in, be the opposite to the Republicans or the opposition when they're not really the opposition so much, because nothing's going to change if Biden gets elected. Nothing. Not a damn thing. And so it's and now one of the things that gets me is how the U.S. Postal Service is taking all this shit. They don't want to bail them out. They don't want to give them any money to help them keep rolling. They don't want to use them for the election. They don't want to have mail-in voting because the Republicans know they would lose if they did that. That's one of the narration or one of the stories I heard, and they're probably right. I could see that happening.
Yeah.
Because if they made it easy for people to vote, if they could just mail something in that was pre-postage marked, and so you didn't even have to go out and buy a stamp. All you had to do was get it to a mailbox or a post office.
Well, and boy,
Trump would win then?
These Trump supporters, they get out and vote in droves, man. They'll go hit the polling booth and then hit the gun range on the way home, and then hit KFC. They make a day of it. Those lazy Democrats that if they can vote from home. All right, maybe I'll pick up a pen and mark, and then maybe I'll lick a stamp and put it in the mailbox. But man, Republicans, they get out and vote. My dad, back in 2010, the midterms, he was dying of brain cancer. He was in a wheelchair, and he absolutely, he cajoled me up and down. Said, Mojo, you are taking me to the polling booth today. And so I got him in the wheelchair, took him in there, and he did nothing but vote against Harry Reid. He was living in Nevada at the time. And, so Republicans will go vote if they can't move half their body. They'll find a way to get to the polling station. And Democrats are lazy. Democrats are younger, and they're lazy.
No, I'm not going to say lazy, dude. I'm saying they feel disenfranchised. For whatever reason, the Republicans are on board. They're drinking the Kool-Aid. Trump, come on, they're drinking Kool-Aid. They're drinking Kool-Aid. Like P. Diddy came out the other day and said, look, I'm not voting for Biden. Joe Rogan came out and said, I can't see myself voting for Biden. Do you think Killer Mike, who was a big supporter of Bernie's, is going to vote for Biden? And the black population, the African Americans, they're huge for the Democrats. If they ever win, that's one of the main reasons why.
No,
Biden's doing nothing to bring them into the the fold. He's not, it's like, I really see people stay home again, just like they did for Hillary, because they don't feel represented by Hillary. They don't feel represented by Biden. They're not getting anything out of the deal. Why should they? If it's just more of the same.
Well, and then watch Joe Biden pick as his running mate Rachel Dolezal. Do you remember this name?
Yeah, wasn't she that white girl that pretended she was black?
Yeah, watch him pull a stupid.
Why would he do that?
Or he might even pick Michelle Obama as his running mate.
I'd be amazed if Michelle would do that.
Do you want
maybe she
to lose?
would. I mean, everybody's coming out to endorse Biden. It's just mind-boggling to me, man.
And I'm an Obama fan. I like him. I like his wife. They're good people. They're hard-working, decent
I was
people.
bummed out by his 8 years. He didn't do as much as I hoped, but he was up against Mitch McConnell and his do-nothing Congress. So.
Paul Ryan. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
So I don't blame him too much, but he gets some of him.
The thing is I'm not voting for Biden either, though, man, Joe.
Right.
I'm not voting for Biden.
Right.
But that doesn't mean I'm voting for Trump.
Right.
I think I've told you what my stance on this.
Yeah.
Is that I have not voted for a president since 2008. I voted for Obama in 2008. I was not voting against McCain and Palin. Yeah. I was voting for Obama. I was all excited.
Me too.
This is cool. This is like a sea change.
Oh,
I
had so much hope.
It was great.
Huge.
And I was proud to vote for a candidate.
Lines going around the block. Yeah.
Since
the only
then,
one.
I have not voted for a candidate since then. I've simply voted against. And so this in November, I'm going to punch Joe Biden's name, but I'm not voting for Biden. Right. I'm voting against Trump. That's all I'm doing.
I think if I was in a swing state, I would do the same. I really do.
And I think
but since I'm not in a swing state, I think I'm going to make the Democrats earn my vote from now on. I want to feel represented. I mean, we talked about corporate farms earlier and how those need to be addressed, and no one's talking about that. There's an ag-gag law, so you can't even blow the whistle on them because
you can't film them. You can't even go film them. That's a crime.
How fucking nuts is that? That's fucked up in my opinion. This is the United States of America. That's bullshit. Yeah. And so now we got to talk about these things. We got to talk about that. We got to talk about the climate. It's like no one's talking about now that Biden's the presumptive nominee. Those stories out the window. Medicare for all. No one's talking about that anymore.
Yeah.
So those are the people that are going to get my vote from now on. The people that are talking about real issues, have real ideas and plans that they want to try and.
Well, you and I, we bumped heads on this one in prior podcasts, and if I may reiterate it or hopefully bring up a new thing that might sway you to vote for Biden in this one, is just look at it in diminishing statistics. That if Trump wins, we know there's going to be no Medicare for all. We know there's going to be huge dark money in politics. We know that's all going to continue. At least if Biden takes over, there is a 0.1% glimmer that it might swing the other way. With Trump and the Republicans, there's no chance that those are going away. With Biden, there's at least a 0.1 trillionth % chance that it might happen.
Yeah. And Kojo made a good point the other day. She's like, now may not be the time to strike. And if Trump's in office, maybe not a great idea to strike because he's not going to give a fuck. But with Biden's in there and you start striking and say, look at Medicare for all, or we're going to keep this economy shut down, once it all recovers and all that. I don't know. Maybe she's got a point. Maybe you have a point.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to get the right guy in there who may just listen.
Yeah. Yeah, but then I'm going to strike her point down by one counter argument that Biden is exactly the wrong Democrat at the wrong time, and then he gives us 8 more years of Republican rule after his 4 years. Man.
My opinion, these corporate Democrats are basically Republican lights these days. Bernie's actually what a normal Democrat should be fucking for. Yeah. He's not radical. He's what Democrats used to stand for. Unions, pro-worker.
That's
right?
the amazing part, Main Joe, is Bernie is not a radical leftist, whatever.
That
He's the
Overton
center.
window slid to the right.
Yeah.
Oh, this is my right.
But you remember Pat Bagley when we had him on,
Yeah.
and he fully agreed with Noam Chomsky that today's Democrats are moderate Republicans.
Right.
Today's
I agree with that.
Republicans are so far off to the right, they're not even on the spectrum anymore. You can't even measure where they are anymore. The Ted Cruzes and the Huckabees and the Lindsey
Trumps
Grahams
and the Lindsey
and the
Grahams
Trump,
and the McConnells.
Yeah.
Lindsey Graham and McConnell are both up for re-election this November. So let's hope. Let's hope. There's a glimmer of hope, actually. I heard that the opponents of Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell are actually out fundraising them right now. So
they're
let's
out
hope.
fundraising, and the one in Kentucky, I think Amy McGrath is her name, his main opponent. She's a retired colonel, and she was a fighter pilot, and she's got all the credentials. She looks like a butch lesbian. Just, I mean, weightlifter, lesbian, date supermodels type of thing. But she's a family woman with kids and had a stellar career, and she's really everything you're looking for in an opponent for Mitch McConnell. So I'm thinking about doing my first political contribution in Kentucky.
There you go.
That would be
love to see McConnell and Graham go down. Would love it. And if we can get Trump, if we get the trifecta, those three.
Oh, geez.
Too much to hope for. I don't know.
No, not in these days.
Maybe that's my hope. Yeah, maybe that's where I should put my hope right now. Bernie's out, so I can't put my hope in Bernie. Maybe I can put my hope into Trump losing, McConnell losing, and Graham losing. That would make my fucking day, man.
Oh, man.
That would be a good election, I think. Even if it is Biden in there, nothing's going to change that way. Well, at least hopefully he'll get better cabinet people in there that know what they're doing. And, Biden may not be able to make a decision, but hopefully they'll be able to run the country until Biden either succumbs to the disease or does his 8 years and we get someone else in there.
Or we see the same thing that happened with George W. Bush. Essentially, Cheney was the power behind the scenes.
Well, and if Biden comes up with a great vice president.
Yeah, exactly. I'd take Andrew Yang. I would take Klobuchar. I'd take any number of them.
I would love Yang. I used to be a fan of Klobuchar, but not so much anymore. But Tulsi would now be another great choice. I would love Tulsi in there. That would be cool.
Yeah. That'd be fine. The number of them. And like we said, Huntsman. I would love for him to pick Huntsman.
I think I'd even be okay with that. Yeah. Anyway, so we've got about an hour now, bro.
I think we're good.
Any final thoughts before I give you the outro?
Well, let's see. I'm trying to think if there's any glimmers of hope that we found a
couple. We did. We've got a antiviral medication that's showing promise.
Mm-hmm.
I found out that even though we can't maybe recall Bernie to come back into the race, maybe I can put my hope in Trump, Graham, and McConnell being defeated, which
there's a glimmer.
Could happen.
Nice
There's
glimmer.
a glimmer.
Yeah. And let's see what else. Well, we're all still doing. We're all doing fine. All of our jam friends, everybody here in Utah, we're doing fine, and things are going to be okay eventually. We'll see. But I guess my last thought is thanks again for getting me out of my house for an hour. I just look forward to these so much.
Yeah, thank you, Mojo. Let's keep it going. I came in tonight with no notes and my head hanging pretty low, but this podcast picked me up a bit. It helped me find some glimmers of hope when I couldn't find them on my own. So thank you for helping me find those. And
let's shoot for Saturday or Sunday then, shall we?
Let's shoot for Sunday, and we'll come back with hopefully more glimmers of hope, some good news. Yeah. I'll try and look into some of these glimmers of hope that we came up with tonight, and go from there.
Oh, no, I sent Pat Bagley a message.
Did you really?
See if he would join us on a Zoom. That'd be fun.
That would be really fun.
It'd be great, even if we get Kojo or Big T or somebody else on.
She went off to George Pyle, too, if you would. I would love to talk to him about all this.
That'd be an interesting one. In fact, that'd be more interesting than Pat right now.
Him and Pat are about equal as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, they're both.
They're both politically savvy and got great insights onto some of these things.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, let music us up. Let's do an outro.
Yeah. That's it, man. That's all I got. I don't have any music. I'll put that in later. So go ahead. If you want to give us a little outro, I'll put the music in I'll fade it up as you're saying your spiel here.
Well, thank you again for joining us on the Two Joes podcast, Zoom edition. We love to zoom. So we'll see you again soon. And, keep your chin up and look for glimmers of hope. And if you find any, mention them in the comments below. Thank you again for joining the Two Joes podcast.